Can you believe this is the 6th generation Subaru Impreza? It's based on the same platform as the previous generation model, features the same engine, and looks pretty much exactly the same. So it's basically a 7-year-old car. No wonder sales are dwindling. In Australia, during 2023, sales were down an alarming 30% compared with 2022. Although, fair enough, that was towards the end of the 5th generation life cycle. But if people weren't buying the previous generation model, why does Subaru suddenly think this so-called new model is going to do well? Come on Subaru, you used to be so much better at this. As for the car itself, look, it's a solid option. Subarus always have been, but the only nameplate that can, and does, get away with such lazy development is the 70 series Land Cruiser. All-wheel drive continues, which remains a key selling point in my opinion, as no direct rival is offered with all-wheel drive in Australia. So that's good, and the new model maintains a nicely proportioned hatchback design, with pretty much identical dimensions as the previous model. Inside, it's a nicely packaged environment, with this top-spec S variant showcasing some rather nice sports seats in the front. The touchscreen is big for its class, although a bit clunky and with overwhelming menu flow in my opinion. There's also lots of storage and passenger space. The driving position is highly adjustable, so it doesn't matter if you're fat and short or tall and skinny, or vice versa, it's easy to find a natural fit, and build quality remains near the top of its class. Rear seat space is also very good, and the seat bench is mildly sculpted to provide some lateral support. It's a shame there are no climate vents in the back, but you can always plug in a USB fan thanks to the twin ports down below. Boot space has actually shrunk compared with the previous model, according to Redbook data anyway. It drops from 345 litres to 291. That doesn't make sense, as both this and the previous model feature a space-saver spare wheel under the floor. Under the bonnet, permission to yawn now by the way, is a carryover 2-litre naturally aspirated flat-4 engine. It sounds and goes like an old Vietnamese fishing boat. Who offers a naturally aspirated engine these days, especially in their top-spec variant? Sorry Subaru, but this is part of the reason why you're not selling these things. There's just hardly any standout appeal to this powertrain, including the CVT. Out on the road, the new Impreza is very easy to drive. I know that's a bit of a silly thing to say because most vehicles are easy to drive, but just the controls, the layout, even the instrument cluster, very conventional. You've got a digital screen in the middle there that shows you your trip information, and then you've got mechanical dials on the outside. There are quite a few buttons on the steering wheel, but you do get used to them. The ones on the left here are mainly related to the interface and the media, and the ones on the right here are mainly related to the drive functions, like your S mode and your intelligent mode, and then your cruise control. I've got most of the safety systems switched off, as you can probably see by all the orange lights on the dash. They do work quite well in the Subaru. I just find them a little bit frustrating, like the lane keep assist and all that. I feel like I know how to keep the vehicle in the lane, and if I don't want to keep it in the lane, that's because I don't want to keep it in the lane. So I just turn them off just out of just my personal preference. But you just hit this car button here and it will take you straight to all the vehicle settings. So it's very easy. Obviously all this stuff resets as soon as you turn off the car and start it back up again. That's all part of the rules at the moment. Even if you do leave them on, I think the safety systems in the Subaru are very good. They seem to be well calibrated. They're not too intrusive, not over the top. Yeah, you can leave them on and not have too much stress or extra anxiety. In terms of the ride comfort, I think this strikes a nice balance between sportiness and comfort. It is a low vehicle, it's not an SUV, so you don't have the full suspension travel of an SUV. On country roads like this where there's a lot of bumps and things, it can feel like it's lower to the ground and sportier, which is fine, but mainly if you've just jumped out of an SUV, you will feel pretty low to the ground. But what this means is it handles really well. So I'll throw it into these S-bends here, the big long S-bends, a few bumps in them as well, unsettles the car a little bit, but the Subaru Impreza goes through with no problem at all. So I've been around there with some vehicles and they just sort of get a bit unsettled, especially SUVs, whereas this is remaining very flat, very stable. The biggest letdown for me is probably the engine and the transmission. It's a CVT, which I don't know, they just keep persisting with CVTs. I know they slash fuel consumption by a certain percentage, but they just take away the drive experience, in my opinion, quite a bit. They're just so boring. And this engine, it produces the same amount of power as the previous generation, which was the same amount of power as the previous generation before that, or roughly anyway. It's not anything drastic that they've changed, and it is very, very slow. So as you'll see in the 0 to 100 tests, the times aren't very impressive, even for this style of car. And I get it, not all vehicles are made to dash across 0 to 100 in, you know, 5 seconds or something. But even compared with the conventional rivals, like that Hyundai i30 sedan that we tested not that long ago, it's still reasonably quick 0 to 100. That means you can overtake very easily, and so on. Whereas this, I'll just slow down a bit and show you. So full throttle. It's very lethargic in the way that it picks up speed. As you'll see in the 0 to 100 tests, I tried all the different modes. So intelligent mode, which is kind of like an eco mode, and you've got a sport mode, which shows you a little graph there. It supposedly gives you better response. The quickest time I actually achieved was in intelligent mode, funnily enough, and that was with manual mode. I was shifting the so-called gears under the direction of that little indicator, so it flashes, you know, up and down when it thinks you should change gears. So I'm going to assume the gearbox and the engine knows when to shift up for the optimum acceleration. So I just shifted up, you know, started flickering the arrow, waited just a split second or so, then shifted straight after that, and that produced the quickest result. So let's head out now to the private road and see what it goes like.